Okay, you got bread at home? It's from a long time. Generation.
Good evening, everyone. If you could all please take your seats, we will begin tonight's meeting. So, my name is Carmelina Calabro. I work in the cultural program here at CO.AS.IT, and it's my pleasure to welcome everyone tonight, both those in presence and those joining us via Zoom. Before we begin, please note that this evening's Zoom will be recorded. So to begin, I begin by inviting you to join me in acknowledging the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I pay respect to their elders past and present, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Tonight, we have the pleasure of hosting the launch of The Stories of La Terra, the fourth anthology written by Ascolta Women, which explores the various meanings of and connections with Terra in all its forms. Ascolta Women has a very special connection with CO.AS.IT, having formed in March 2020 following a forum and creative writing workshop held in this very room just before lockdown. And now, 4 years later, we are extremely proud to see this group of multi-generational Italian-Australian and Italian-affiliated women grow and flourish over the years into a group of nearly 60 women in Australia and overseas. We feel privileged to be able to support your work and look forward to continuing to do so in the future. So, we think there is no better way for us to celebrate International Women's Day than by celebrating these wonderful, talented women and the amazing work they do in amplifying the unheard stories of the Italian diaspora through creative expression and dialogue. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to pass to Teresa Capetola to begin this evening. Please make her welcome.
Buonasera a tutti. Welcome everyone. Benvenuta. As Carmelina said, I'm Teresa Capetola. I'm one of the very, very proud co-founders of Ascolta Women. And as I look across the audience, I can see tutte le belle sorelle. Welcome everyone. The Ascolta Women and many others have come from all the corners of Australia. So we have our beautiful sorelle from Western Australia, from Jura, from Adelaide, from Sydney, from Melbourne, from London, from Carlton. This evening, we are celebrating International Women's Day, as Carmelina said, with the launch of our fourth anthology, Stories from La Terra. La Terra, of course, can be translated to mean the earth, dirt, country, land. La Terra gets under your skin, under your nails, under your feet. It resonates with us in our hearts. This evening, we have a beautiful, exciting presentation of stories, of images of La Terra. I'd like to commence, of course, by acknowledging La Terra where we meet today. We are on La Terra of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. We acknowledge Australia as a colonial settler nation and our First Nation people as its original and enduring custodians. We recognise that sovereignty has not been ceded and support the First Nations people's right to sovereignty to the lands and waters on which we live, work, play, love, age and die. We acknowledge and pay respect to past, present and future traditional custodians and elders of country across Australia. Many cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people continue to be held sacred space and foster our Australian identity. And of course, apart from our First Nations people, we are all migrants and refugees to Australia. So, questa sera, we are going to, as I said, have wonderful presentations about La Terra. We're going to commence with an update on Ascolta Women as Carmelina, and of course, our heartfelt thanks to Carmelina, to Paolo, and to co-hosts. Sara will be telling us about what we've done in the last 4 years. How have we used our time productively, and what have we achieved? What have we learned? What are we celebrating? We'll then move on to a panel of speakers who are all related to the Callipari family. And then we'll move on to some extracts of readings from our current beautiful book. And then we're going to ask you to tell us some of your stories. So no need to panic. If we all get a bit shy, which I doubt very much, we'll be able to read more stories. Of course, our books, all our books are at the back. Thank you, of course, to our beautiful, there's Connie, there's Margarita, there's Maria. Thank you very much for staffing our beautiful books, and the books are all available. And hello, of course, to everyone on Zoom. Ascolta Women has grown, we've developed, we're just a remarkable group. And I know that we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have Sara Bavato with us. So I'd like to introduce Sara, who will tell us what have we been doing, Sara, for 4 years.
Grazie mille Teresa, in realtà dobbiamo ringraziare tantissimo Teresa, è stata la sua idea, il suo tema. We have an amazing group of women that are very committed, and you will hear from some of them, but there are many more in the audience here tonight that are instrumental for what we've done in the past 4 years. So I think it's always very exciting, and I'm very nervous to be in this room full of people. And it's a place that we cherish a lot because it's where everything started back in 2020. And as Carmelina touched on, so there was a forum in March 2020, and then a writing workshop held by Elise Valmorbida and Annamaria Paolino. And from that, that happened exactly a couple of days before lockdown, and it was the longest lockdown in the world. So it was a dark time, but a fertile time for that Ascolta seed to actually grow. And in 4 years, I just had to write some numbers before. We've done 70 writing sessions over 4 years. We meet twice a month. We've done over 10 writing workshops, art workshop. We published 4 books with no money, so self-funded. That's a pretty big achievement. We sold nearly 700 books, so please make us. And we had events in Melbourne, Adelaide, Mildura, Brisbane, and Sydney. So I think, again, going back to the image of that seed, what nurtured that seed was the amazing group of women that kept showing up in 2020, despite COVID, despite life's ups and downs. And at the core of our group was not just the writing itself that's showcased in the book, but also listening. And as our name is Ascolta, it means listen. It's the second person singular, so it's an invitation, an exhortation, and in some cases an imperative. We need to listen to each other. Listening is a fundamental part of our process, and our writing might start in isolation in our individual space, but then it really becomes alive when we share it with the group. We listen, we comment, we don't judge, we don't apologize, which is very hard sometimes. But we just read it out, and then our unique stories become part of a shared collective narrative that encapsulate the multitude of experience, because being an Italian woman in Australia, or an Italian affiliated woman, which means we have some women that are not Italian blood, if you want to say that, but Italian culture and language is part of their identity. So being Italian woman in Australia is not a label, it's not a unique experience, but there are a multitude of experiences. So when we collect our writings in our anthologies, we are making our voices heard, when often there are no spaces for us to tell these stories. But we are also dispersing seeds of stories, hoping that they can find the fertile soil in the hearts of others. So our aspiration is that from those stories, other women are empowered to make their own stories heard, especially those stories that we maybe bury deep inside, the ones that are hard to tell, and the one that we might not even know that are in us. So throughout the 4 years, Ascolta has been very active. We have a core group of 20 women, but about 70 now that follow us and occasionally join. Excitingly, because we love Ascolta so much, we made it an actual association. So we are now a not-for-profit. We are incorporated. We will be launching the membership. If you're interested in joining or learning more, there is you can write your email and we'll be happy to be in touch with you. And we want to keep growing. At the moment, as Teresa mentioned, we have Ascoltiamo, because that's how we call ourselves. We have Ascoltiamo from all over the world. So we have someone tuning in at 4:30 in the morning from Canada, coming to the sessions, all over Australia, UK. So it's very exciting. And we think that's a testament to the fact that people want to share their story and hear the story. So please join us if you want, and don't steal more time because we have an amazing panel soon and readers. But firstly, we have Elise Valmorbida that is going to present our fourth anthology, Story from La Terra. So
thank you for the lovely introductions, and welcome everyone here. I've been invited to introduce this evening, but we've already had two very, very capable and marvelous introductions, so I'm not sure what I'm going to add to that. But I'm a writer, I'm Italian-Australian, and I teach creative writing, and as has been mentioned already, Ascolta began with a forum and a creative writing workshop 4 years ago here, just before the world locked down. So Annamaria Paolino, who is here, and I together devised a workshop. We did it, remotely. She was in Sydney, I was in Melbourne, and we delivered that on the Saturday. And I think 4 or 5 days later, I was on a hastily changed plane back to London, and just as well because the world locked down. Meanwhile, these amazing people got together and met online, thank God for Zoom, and developed their group spirit, the group spirit that had developed in this forum, and developed their creativity, their collective creativity, and carried on. And as has already been explained to you now, my goodness, they've grown to a group of over 70 members, people in different countries, different states, all over the place, contributing and performing and gathering and putting their strengths and passions together in very, very different ways. I'm very, very proud to be connected with this group of people, although I think of myself as a bit of an also-ran, a satellite. I live in London and I don't attend any of the bi-weekly sessions, but I am on the WhatsApp group, one of the many manifestations of communication that keep this group together. So I am aware from time to time of what people get up to and what they're producing. I don't want to get too depressing because actually it's happy, but it's also not happy. It's International Women's Day, and it's no coincidence. The original forum and creative writing workshop were timed to coincide with International Women's Day, and that's what today is. CO.AS.IT has been wonderful in supporting not just Italian Australians, but also women. And throughout the month of March, I urge you to take part in the various events and activities that are being put on. So there are workshops, there are book launches, there are performances, there are readings. There's a really beautiful and special exhibition going on right now, and the person behind that is one of the Ascolta group. So I urge you to take part in this month of events that are connected with women and culture. I will talk about the book. You've already had a bit of a taste of that. But I think it's actually worth remembering what International Women's Day is all about and where it came from. It emerged from a grassroots women's labour movement, plural, movements across North America and Europe in the early 20th century. Women in different countries were demonstrating for the rights, some of which we take for granted now, the rights to vote, the rights to work, and to end discrimination on the job. They protested against wars too. So in Australia, the first International Women's Day was actually in Sydney in 1928. Women and girls were demanding equal pay for work, an 8-hour working day for shop girls, I use the term that was used then, and paid leave. Brisbane followed, and good old Melbourne followed a little after with an International Women's Day in 1931. That was, listen to the dates, almost 100 years ago. 100 years ago that women were here in Australia marching to ask for equal pay. Remarkable then that almost 100 years later, the gender pay gap in Australia today is 22%. So for every dollar a man earns in Australia on average, a woman earns 78 cents. In Australia today, that averages to a difference of over $26,000 per year that women earn less than men. And I'm talking about Australia. We know that there are other places in the world where the statistics are worse. As well as being underpaid in contemporary Australia, women do about double the unpaid work in the household and childcare that men do. Women are also twice as likely as men to be the care providers for elderly relatives and people with a disability. That's the gender pay gap. Then there's gendered violence. I'm sorry, this is depressing, but it's partly why we have International Women's Day. Women are 5 times more likely than men to experience sexual violence. About one woman per week in Australia today is killed by a current or former partner. The stats are really depressing. But one source of hope is progress. We have in many countries laws that discourage wage and work discrimination based on gender. We have laws which take sexual violence seriously. We have laws to curb the trafficking of women and girls. Laws that are based on real data, and many laws that work internationally across borders. At UN level, there's a development fund for women addressing vital issues such as contemporary slavery, never mind slavery 200 years ago, contemporary slavery, and sexual violence as a weapon of war. Laws and funds don't solve problems, but they're a start. If the law changes, sooner or later, behaviours change. If we fund education, attitudes and opportunities change too. It's a very imperfect world, but we are making progress. Women's rights are a work in progress. International Women's Day is a day to mark the need for progress, as well as to celebrate the progress we've already made. Advances in healthcare, education, suffrage, financial empowerment, and rights. And cultural achievements, creative achievements, truth-telling achievements. Paying attention to women's voices when so often and in so many ways, women are silenced or not heard. Which brings me to Ascolta. As has already been said tonight, Ascolta means listen. Ascolta Women Inc. is an achievement. It started as a forum and a creative writing workshop here at CO.AS.IT 4 years ago, just before the world lockdown. Teresa Capetola, very modest, very humble, very generous person, is the prime mover shaker here. I call her, and this is official, I call her the wonder worker because she is a person who works wonders. She got Ascolta off the ground and continues to give her time and driving energy to Ascolta unpaid on top of all her work and family commitments. She's also being joined now by a team of what I call hardcore Ascoltese, who together have built this collective into a thriving, incorporated organisation that has more than 70 members and extends well beyond Australia. Ascolta women listen and communicate actively. There's a lively WhatsApp group, as I mentioned before, email groups, meetings, events, performances, conferences, workshops, exhibitions, publications. All of this cultural activity takes organising, promoting, curating, administering, and so on. Too many names to name, but you know who you are. Can I just say, let's applaud you now. I'd say be proud of your role in this collective, because you do marvelous things when you put your strengths and passions together. Tonight we celebrate just one of these marvelous achievements, the 4th annual anthology of writing and imagery, this year on the theme of La Terra, Earth. La Terra is planet Earth, or the dirt that gets under your fingernails when you grow and tend plants. La Terra may be a homeland or a destination. La Terra can be a suburban backyard, a garden, a farm, a vineyard, a vegetable plot, a place of ritual, the land of others who came before you. The seed from which this book grew is a creative writing workshop led by Annamaria and me exactly 1 year ago. After that, Ascolta completely took over, nurturing and airing their work at online meetings and other creative sessions. Their writings and images have been put together by a dedicated editorial team, then designed, costed, printed, bound, delivered, promoted, distributed. Let's not forget each and every one of these processes. They all take time and care. But the story does not end there. Now the book needs readers. That's everyone here tonight, and others beyond these walls. So please buy a copy for yourself and buy more copies as a gift for anyone who's lovely in your life. And I'll close with saying hats off to Ascolta for making this book happen. Tonight on International Women's Day, we celebrate this book as an act of creativity and community, the collective achievement of women. Here's to Ascolta Women Inc. and International Women's Day.
Can I call up to the stage in order of birth? Let's all say in Italian, that's the way we do things. So, my sister, Elena Callipari. And my cousin, Elena Maria Callipari. So I'm now going to introduce myself. Third little child, don't go there. Fortunata Callipari. And finally, as part of this panel discussion, I'd like to introduce cousin Luci Callipari-Marcuzzo. So I'm just going to set the context of what it was like to grow up on a farm in sunny Sunraysia, Mildura. And excuse me for reading a little bit because, you know, I get very nervous when I'm on a stage. And then I'll be, what we're going to talk about tonight is what it was like growing up there and why some of us left, why some of us stayed, and how that has actually shaped us. And what we think of the land now. So that's kind of where we're going to go to tonight. But I'm going to set the scene. So, you know, it's the late 60s, early 70s, and, you know, we're on a block in sunny Asia. So I don't know if people know what a block is, but it's basically a vineyard and it's a dried fruit. And in those days, everyone did dried fruit. There wasn't a diverse market as there is now. And, you know, the harvest went from January through to May, picking, putting it on the racks, drying it. And we traversed those rows of vines up and down on foot with each season. In winter, Dad did the pruning and us kids did the pulling out. Then we all cleaned the canes before rolling them on. In the spring, the vines blossomed and the canes grew long, so we had to do the topping. So you got to know what your right hand felt like. And, you know, don't stand too close. It's a machete when you top. Up and down the rows. I'm trying to set a scene here of what it was like growing up on a farm in sunny Sunraysia, Mildura. We then had to pull off the sprouts and collect the pruned knots that we used for stove fuel. We cleaned the weeds and dug furrows for watering with a shovel. In the summer harvest, we got up before the sun to pick in the cool of the day, though we never really stopped. We'd get so thirsty that water did not quench our thirst. What actually worked was gorging the fruit until we were not thirsty anymore. So we'd go home with bloated bellies from too much fructose. The grapes were picked in metal dip tins and collected and dipped in a solution of caustic potash on the back of the trailer before reaching the racks. We would then spread it out. It was 12 rungs high, about 100 metres long. That was usually the women's job. Once it was dried, then we had to shake it, and then it had to go on the ground and dry some more. And if it rained, we had to actually wrap the racks in hessian and use a dehydrator to dry it out more. And then the fruit co-op, they'd pay us once a year, and they paid us whatever they thought the fruit was worth. It's all changed now, and Lucy can talk to that. There were no toilets in the block. You had to find a spot, dig a hole, and you can imagine the rest. Let's just say we got inventive with vine leaves. Us kids, we were sunburned, scratched, cut fingers, sore muscles, mozzie bitten. It was pretty hardcore sustainable. Our mothers made our clothes, knitted, mended, cut our hair, grew a garden, cooked everything, and gave birth, probably at the same time. And our kids were left at home to care for the family. We had combustion stoves for cooking, heating and hot water. We picked veggies, we preserved fruit, we made sauce after growing shitloads of tomatoes, and we reused long-neck Carlton draft beer bottles. So we knew what sustainable was, and we still do. We had a Hills hoist where our mother hung a pillowcase full of red sauce to make tomato paste and the washing. There was a cow for milk, chickens for eggs, pigs, goats, sheep for meat, and then we sold the pelts. Our mum made cheese and ricotta. Our dads went duck shooting, hunted rabbits. We baked bread and biscuits at Warner's. You know, food production on a massive scale for big families. And our parents had very high expectations of us. They wanted us to know how to look after ourselves, but they never gave us any freedom. Our cousins and extended family and church were our social life. We rode our bikes to primary school, took the bus to secondary school and the train to the B-line train to university. We got yelled at a lot, and in the shadow of fear from ignorance, everything our parents did and did not understand, including mental illness, life stage taboos, they were like children and we were like the parents. Under the heavy cloak of Catholicism, guilt, judgment, shame and self-blame, and under the dominance of fathers, men, patriarchy, gendered roles, control, friends, movement, money and punishment as the norm. So this is kind of the scene in which we all grew up. And I want to invite my cousins and sister to maybe contribute, if you want to contribute to that, and also talk about how this actually shaped you. So we went from firstborn.
So, yes, after all that, how did that shape me? I'm alive. Almost. Hallelujah, praise the Lord. And I guess it really established a bit of a strong work ethic, I think, and I know people in this room know what I'm talking about. You know, you had no choice but to basically roll up your sleeves and do what needed to be done. I think for me, it strengthened my own
resilience and perseverance. I was very determined to leave. And nothing was going to stop me. You know, I wanted to study, and that's what I was going to do. There was no life on the farm, no happy marriage with a farmer, no farmer wants a wife, no kids. Sure, all in good time, but really I wanted to leave and get an education and have a very different life to the life that I've grown up in. So it enabled my own self-determination. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Elena.
So yeah, my name's Elena too. Now I'll tell you a little story because we're all named after Grandma and there's 5 of us in the family. 3 of us with the same name. And the other Elena is here somewhere too. We're Elena. So, you know, we'd be called up to the office sometimes at St. Joseph's College where Sylvia was a teacher. And they'd say, Elena Callipari, please come to the Of course, we have to all go. And we have to say, so who do you want? Do you want Tony's daughter, Joe's daughter? I'm Bruno's. So we go along to find out, the other 2 would disappear, and then we'd find out what they wanted. But yes, we're named after Grandma, and for a while I was actually, oh, my name's Elena, so. But we got to really love our names because we were named after our grandmother. Our matriarchal, she was my rock. And when my parents split up, she was my constant. School was also, and I had a lovely mentor, my sister, named Sister Sylvia, who's in our audience at the moment. And some of you know Sister Sylvia Capetola. So we were, you know, sometimes our teachers were our allies, you know, because we weren't allowed to do much, well, certainly I wasn't. I, like Elena, wanted to go. But of course, my parents split up when I was in year 11. And being the eldest in the family, I kind of had to, I don't know that I had to take it on, but I did. So I took on the responsibilities of being the second mum, I suppose. And yeah, it was a difficult time, but thankfully, Sister Sylvia helped that be a little bit smoother. And I think Elena had a similar experience with a priest that helped her get to uni. And we also looked up to Elena because she was the first one to leave. And it was a hard road. So some of the others, like my sisters, got to go away and they'll speak about their own, my cousin's just here. So yeah, it is something very close to my heart, why we are named the way we are. Of course, when you meet someone of an Italian family, if they're traditional, you already know what your kids' names are going to be before you actually even have kids. But I married an Australian Greek, and things were very different. And we split up as well, not very long ago. And of course, that comes with its own challenges as well. But of course, he was a farmer. I was never going to marry a farmer either, but I did. And I don't regret, of course, having met him and having children, etc. It was certainly a learning experience. And and all the rest, but I won't go into that. That was like 28 years. We still are very good friends, and we keep you know, civil for the kids. I think that's really important. Anyway, I digress. It's very much of the land. We are from the land, so we're from the land, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Good job. And so it's my turn because I was the next in, like, I was born next. I actually really like sultanas. It's one thing that I do suffer from, what do you call it, when you have too much fruit? You know what? I'm really good at event management, catering. Excellent, and also collective work, and I think that's why I'm part of the Ascolta. So, you know, I really like that we, it's like being in a family, in a very, very big family, you know, 70 people plus. Yeah, no, so in terms of how it's shaped me, you know, I have a lot of anxieties. And yeah, it's, I was the third born, and I did just, you know, I was very quiet. I was very quiet, and I was able to observe, and I just followed everyone else. So I have to thank my sister for that, because I just followed in her footsteps and very much had the same feeling of the hell out of here, which I did. But yeah, anyway, I could go on, but I've had enough talking. I'm going to pass to Lucy.
Yes, my name is Lucy, not named after anyone. So my second name is Domenica, which was my mother's name. So my nonna, she was Domenica. So mum thought she'd be a rebel and named me Luciana. Luciana was a famous actress, and mum can't actually remember which actress it was. Way back in the 70s. However, my nonna took. She was a bit offended that my mum named me Luciana and not Domenica. So at home I was Domenica or Mimi or Mimma, because that's the diminutive of Domenica. And at school I was enrolled as Luciana. However, I soon discovered that Luciana rhymes with all sorts of things, including banana, marijuana, other things. So when I made it to secondary school, I anglicised my name to Lucy, which I think I regret. But anyhow, I was probably a little bit, living two lives. However, I took singing lessons, and my singing teacher didn't know any of my history. I sang an opera that there's a line, "Si mi chiamo Mimi Mami, ma il mio nome è Lucia." And it's like, what? She didn't know this. She just knew me as Lucy. So anyway, again, I digress as well. I will say that my experience was slightly different. I'm the baby in my family, so there's four of us. My father was different. So he was the second born child to the Callipari family, Antonio Pietro, and my dad passed away just over 20 years ago, quite young, in his 60s. But Dad was a gentleman and a gentleman, and he didn't push. Well, not me. The older kids had to go out and go on the block, but I would always find an excuse, and of course, because I was the youngest one and the baby, I was born quite a few years after everyone else. I got away with quite a bit, and I would just be called upon for entertainment and sing while everyone was working really hard and doing all sorts of stuff. And rolling around in the flood irrigation, which I got into trouble. But however, Dad did laugh and just sent me home and said, "Go see your mother." Unfortunately, I'm not very good at growing anything. The rest of my family is really good at growing stuff. Although actually, Elena, I'm not sure whether we didn't kind of get that gene. We're a bit more creative. However, it skipped a generation, and my son, who's 18, has learned quite a bit from growing stuff from my mum, and has spent quite a bit of time with them. But my dad didn't push us to do stuff, and in fact, he was more supportive of my creative side. So, these are some scenes from my mother's garden. So I do love going out in Mum's garden. Mum's very proud of her garden. She's been in the Globo. She's grown a ginormous broccoli plant, the same size as her. My mum's not very tall, huge, but she's very good. So we've got all of these things from Mum's garden in there, except for that one up in the corner. I took that photo in Rome, but the rest of them are on Mum's garden. So or my own. My husband, we have a vineyard property, so they are our vineyards. So he's good at growing, I'm crap, but that's good.
We're going to go backwards now, because the next question is about why did you stay? And my sister and I have talked a little bit about why we left. So I'm going to hand it back to Lucy to answer that question, and Elena.
Do you mind if I sit down?
We need to stand up. Okay, so me, why did I stay? So I did leave momentarily. I went away to university because I was a testadora, typical Calabrese. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and my mother's family, in fact, were the more strict rather than my father's family. So that was my experience. I fought a lot to go away to uni, and the only one from my family who did that. However, I did return to Mildura. I went away to uni and to Bendigo, and then returned with the intention to not stay. But I met my husband, and the rest is history. I stayed there, and I was very fortunate to then get a job that I love. I work in the arts, and I support people in the arts. I'm also good at organising big groups of people, because not only are the Calliparis a huge side, but so is my mum's side of the family. My auntie had 9 kids. So, I don't know, it's about, I think, just in my auntie's family, it's about 100 cousins. So, it's a big family. So, and we all love each other most of the time. So that's why I stayed. So I found a fulfilling job and have an arts practice as well. So that's why, yeah, that's me. I still live on the block, yes, I touched on that. So we have vineyards, we have about 100 acres of wine grapes. And in fact, tonight, actually last night, we were harvesting some of our Prosecco and Cabernet Sauvignon. So here I am, them being my husband and myself, with a tractor. So yes, mechanical grape harvesters, none of this picking by hand like we did when we were kids. You know, occasionally I did go out and help, but I was miserable, so I was sent home. And probably part of my ploy. But everybody else had to work hard. Yes, all with machine now.
Mostly with machines. So drink up, everybody, because we need the industry to keep growing. So I didn't actually decide to stay. It happened that I stayed, like I said before, mum and dad situation, and I was 16 and I'm the eldest, so I took on some responsibilities. I couldn't go away, but we had a college at Mildura, and so I went around looking for back home. So I found other ways. As we know now, there's lots of opportunities in getting education in various ways, pathways, etc. So we know that you don't have to go a certain way. You didn't have to, so we don't have to go to uni. I went and did a designer dressmaking certificate, diploma then, and still design, dressmake, tailor now, and just finished a wedding at the just recently, like yesterday, past the month, before I left to come here. So bridesmaid dresses and alterations and suits. So. Also make wedding dresses, etc. But I'm not going to. Tools of the trade. But for a long time, I didn't sew. I got married and I had children, and I had a child who had a disability, who we became family with the Royal Children's Hospital here. So. He was born with a heart condition. So my life went from supporting my family and my sisters who were able to go away to then getting married and then having a child with a disability and heart condition specifically. And then going through and having 2 other children after he passed. So unfortunately, life takes us on throws us a curveball, takes us on a different tack. And therefore, I understood a little bit about my mum and dad splitting up, because they had a daughter who was my sister, the 4th. So there was 5 of us. She passed away of cot death when she was 6 months old. And that brought along, which I understand now, is complicated grief. As a young child, I didn't understand that. We also lost Jacob, of course, and I was 5 months pregnant. With our next child, so now I have lovely Enya and Noah. But it was a difficult time, and in those days of my parents, I could see the difference between, the mental health issues, support, grief, and the things from complicated grief. Being able to listen, to really listen to each other, to support each other, and this is what Ascolta is about. So the relationship between the land, us, our family and each other, specifically us here today, it all relates and we can't really separate them. So now I'm here today in front of you. I'm very proud to be part of Ascolta, to be an Ascoltessa, and thank you so much for supporting us.
Elena was also instrumental in establishing an all abilities play space in Mildura. It's quite significant as well, called Jacob's Playground for children of all ages. I'm going to ask my sister now to talk a little bit about what is it that you want to highlight about the land and what it means specifically to you.
Okay, well, I mean, mainly for me, and I know we've probably gone for a bit of time now. I guess land is about having a home, and I feel very privileged that, you know, as a single parent as well, there's a bit of a theme, you know, that I was able to hold on to my home and give my kids a very safe, you know, stable place for them to grow up. So, you know, land is about having that home, a place to feel safe and have our basic needs met and be able to be creative, do all the things that we can do without having to worry, you know, about those basic needs. It's also, I think, it's about respecting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander rights, and something, and you'll read about it in the book, that, you know, as a kid in the 60s, you know, we were inducted to, you know, be racists, you know, to discriminate because you were being discriminated, and, you know, it kind of, you know, went round. So I feel like I've learned a lot more, having been able to work in that space for the last decade. So land is very much about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander sovereignty, and our responsibility to care for country. And I guess the other thing is, well, I did learn about growing things, and I can grow things. I'm not great at it, but I do feel like being out in nature is a happy space. It's a space where, you know, with every season, it's a cycle of giving. It's a cycle of forgiving. It's food for physical health, and nature and beauty for mental health. So for me, La Terra, I don't know, you're having a bad day, go outside, get into it, lie in it, you know, look up at the sky, breathe, admire the beauty. And my daughter, who's here, who takes walks with me, Lula, will say, oh no, here she goes again about the lavender. Or, oh no, do I have to hear that again? But it's true, just, you know, breathe and enjoy the beauty. I'm so grateful that we have that, and look after country so that we can continue having it for us and our children.
Do you want to answer that question? Or just wind it up. If you want to say 2 lines about the land, what it means to you.
The land has always been part of, it really connects with family. Family is the land, etc., etc. So I think it's just this, either a circle that we see, or just a transfer, you know, just continuous.
Thanks. I just want to say the land to me, in terms of our bodies and our health and just that connection to country, like it's in us, it's in our bodies, and you will have to read the book about what I think about the land. Anyway, I think to Lucy.
Okay, 1 second or less. Okay, so yes, the land is a life force, but it's also a life source. It can be, you know, we have earthquakes, we have, you know, we can grow things, but, you know, Mother Nature should be respected and, respected. And I know I'm out of time, sorry, I'm just going to cut that short. Also, my parents did grow snails, forgot to mention that earlier. That's it from me.
Thank you, everyone.
you aren't a Callipari, if you weren't one when you walked in the door, you'll be one when you.
I'm a blessing.
We would like to invite some of the Ascoltiamo women to come and do a little bit of reading from their contributions in the book. So I'll ask them to come up one at a time. They will introduce their inspiration for writing, a little bit of context and a little bit from the book, but then you have to buy the book in order to read the rest of it. All the images that you've been seeing on the slides have been taken by the Ascolta women. So there's artwork, there's photos. So it's we are so creative. Elena in Melbourne, I have nicknames for everyone. Elena in Melbourne made a comment when she was reading through the book that we mentioned our dads a lot in the garden. So these are a few of the dads of the Ascoltiamo women in the gardens. I'd like to invite Anna Perri to come and speak to us and tell us a little bit about her story and a bit of the context for her story. The man in the middle is Anna's dad. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little bit nervous, but I'll do my best. And so, with the Ascolta women, when we write stories, there's often a theme for that week. And one of the first themes that we wrote about was writing a letter to somebody important to us that arrived on Station Pier. Because in lots of ways, that's the first place that a lot of the migrants set foot at questa terra. And so that's the background behind my story. And yes, sir. So I'll start a little bit. I'll jump around my story and speak to different parts. So I wrote my story to my father, who's in the middle over there. And it's called Buon Voyaggio. Just going to change my glasses. I open your suitcase again today, Papa. The suitcase that journeyed with you when you left the shores of your homeland, Abruzzo, a small farming paese set in the hills of southern Italy. Your suitcase sat for many years on top of the wardrobe, and you and Mama filled it with all the important family documents. Your suitcase was also filled with so many small parcels and envelopes of all sizes, held together by string. You neatly secured the contents to keep them safe. I wish I had gone through them with you when you were still alive. That way, I could better understand your thoughts, your memories, and the stories behind the treasures you kept. My hands dig deep into the suitcase, and I pick up the big yellow envelope. I open it, and there they all are. The faces of so many of our relatives. Some close, and some I simply don't recognize. All of them having left their homeland of Italy, as you did, Baba, to journey to Australia in search of un pezzo di terra, a piece of land to call your own, to build the hope of a new life, a home, a family, and of course, to have a backyard, un giardino, to plant seeds, to grow food and stay connected. All of them had arrived by ship into Melbourne, Port Melbourne, and disembarked at Station Pier. Concetta Mazzarella di Floro, Salvadero Marasco, Antonio Pascuzzo. They are all death notices. Every Monday, when the global arrived, you would always eventually make your way to the funeral and death notices. Mi ricordo. I do remember how you meticulously going through the death notices in the paper and acknowledging those who died. Sometimes you went to the funerals, and other times you lit a candle to honor their souls. Antonio Perri, Angela Pugliese Perri, CO.AS.IT. What I didn't know was the painstaking care you took in cutting the death notices out. Pietro Siriani, Giovanni De Simoni, Grazia De Simoni, Nebuti. And with respect and love, you stole them. So that's a little bit about the story. And then I go on about one of the other rituals that we did when we wrote these stories. We actually went to Station Pier and we actually burnt them. You know, first acknowledged the stories. And in my case, what I did is I actually burnt all the death notices. It was a hard one when packing up our parents' lives. So it's hard to know what to do with all those little bits of paper that they thought was really important to them. So, it was a great idea of going to a ritual. So I actually burnt these and we recorded them, and then we went to Station Pier and we threw the ashes into the ocean. And so I'll go to the end of my story. And I will talk about this little bit near the end, where I say, I look into all the faces, I begin to understand. Some of them lived a short time in this new homeland, just like la mia mamma, Giuseppina Perri Nepolci. And some, like you, Papa, lived a long, long life. As you said, it is a privilege to go old. Sono fortunata che la vecchiaia mi ha arrivato. Mario Orlando Perri. So I bring all of these cuttings, all of these stories, and the memories of all the strong Italian migrants back to the ocean, back to where their journey began, back to Station Pier. And as I scatter the ashes of their death notices that you, Papa, nurtured, I now have the hope that their lives, their stories, can reconnect to the shores of their homeland and continue to connect the shores of their chosen land. And I'll leave it there so you can look at
Thank you so much, Anna. I'd now like to invite Annamaria Paolino to come and speak. And Annamaria Paolino has arrived from Perth to come all the way here. Thank you, Annamaria.
I just need to acknowledge that my country that I've come from is Wajapuna, and it gives me great pleasure to come to Wajundri, the land of the Wajundri people, the Kulin Nation, and read my story of two powerhouses in my family. I walk on the shoulders of giants. That is my nonna, Spina Salvatore Cinquina, and my mum, Elia Cinquina Paolino. So when I joined Ascolta a year ago, and I heard the title of the book, La Terra, I have to write this book because my nonna, not my dad, my nonna is a person who, to me, is synonymous with La Terra and the connection to it. And each year, so my piece in the book is called I semi della raccolta, and each year, and I'll say it in my Charol, she came from Basto, she would say, chi c'è somiglia della raccolta? Mo lui metterà la jarret e l'anno prossimo raccogliamo the fagioli, the pomodoro. And so, and I'm very proud of my dialect. So, snippet from my piece. I now have personally a collection of fagioli, pomodori, tortarelli, rapini, pepe, e altre verdure. But as I look at them, I realize that these seeds are more than just seeds. They are seeds of life, seeds of death, seeds of nurturing, seeds of growth, seeds of opportunity and seeds of fear, seeds of nourishment and seeds of health, seeds of poverty and seeds of wealth, seeds of teaching and seeds of learning, seeds of giving and seeds of receiving, seeds of friends and seeds of family, seeds of the past and seeds of the future, seeds of belonging and seeds of connection, seeds of grief and seeds of frustration, seeds of time and seeds of history, seeds of the familiar and seeds of the unknown, seeds of joy and seeds of pain, seeds of pride and seeds of shame, seeds of old and seeds of new, seeds of love and seeds of hope. Seeds of happiness and seeds of despair, seeds of compassion and seeds of hate, seeds of success and seeds of failure, seeds of beginning and seeds of end, seeds of scarcity and seeds of abundance, seeds of courage and seeds of strength, seeds of determination and seeds of resilience, seeds of isolation and seeds of community, seeds of memory and seeds of reflection. I tip some precious seeds into my hands. As I touch them, I close my eyes. I can feel the skin of her smooth hands, the hands which once held them, the hands which once cared for them, and I hear her voice. It's my responsibility to maintain this legacy, to regenerate and germinate these seeds in the way Nonna would have done and the way she would have wanted, to remember her love, and to remember her sfida. This is her story. Grazie nonna, ti amo e mi manchi.
Thank you, Annamaria. Claudia, I'd like to welcome Claudia Grinzi, who will come and tell us beautiful stories from the Terra. Thank you.
Buonasera. My name's Claudia Grinzi. I'm first generation Australian. So my mum, Maria Antonia Bonetti, came to Australia as a migrant when she was 12 from Scilla in Calabria. And my father was a refugee from former Yugoslavia who also arrived in Australia when he was 12 years old. My parents actually have a really beautiful love story. They met at the San Remo ballroom. I'll write about that story one day. I have to say my love affair with being Italian has kind of come and gone over the years, and there's usually something that sparks or reinvigorates it. Last year, I had the honour of working with lots of refugee and migrant men and women, and hearing them talk about where they're from and seeing their eyes light up. It really sparked something in me, and I was very fortunate last year to be at an event and met Maria Paolino, and that conversation really shifted something for me, and she mentioned about the Ascolta Women, and I was like, that night I went home, I wrote an email. Within a week, Maria and Teresa invited me to the group, and it's just been the most amazing family to be a part of. And the warmth has been incredible. And what it's actually inspired in me and the stories that I've been able to learn from my mum and dad, my Zia and Zia, my godparents, just sitting around the table, it's been incredible. They're remembering stories that they'd actually forgotten about, and they get so excited to want to share it. So I've been able to capture some of those stories in this book. But the story I'm going to share with you is, it's part of my story as well, and it's called Rush of Water. In 1993, did I click something? Sorry. In 1993, I travelled to Italy for the first time as a headstrong 19-year-old, along with my younger brother, sister, and parents. It was a special trip, as it was the first time my mother was returning to her homeland, after migrating to Australia with her family almost 30 years earlier. As we approached her small fishing village in Calabria, I felt I could read the thoughts on her face. Would the people she knew still be there? Would it look the same? Would it feel the same? Would it smell the same? Was she the same? After 20 long hours of travelling by plane, bus and car in the sweltering Italian heat, we finally arrived at the seaside village of Scilla and were warmly met by my mum's cousin Mimo and his very sweaty armpits. After lots of hugs and double kisses, he led us to the place we would be calling home for the next 3 weeks. As we walked down cobblestone lanes, dragging our luggage, because it's too narrow for cars to enter, my mum's face lit up, recalling a memory about the man with the goats who would shepherd them down the lanes ringing his bell. My mum, an ever-attentive child, would race into the street and hand him a saucepan so he could milk the goats there and then.
fresh, warm goat's milk for the family, mother to door. Being more familiar with luxury hotels on our holidays, I must admit I was a little taken aback when we arrived at our destination. I was greeted by a salty old wooden door opening into a sparse and narrow apartment. Squashed like a sardine, this was the building where my mum was born and raised, like her brothers and sisters before her. At that moment, a realisation started to dawn. I was very lucky to grow up in Australia. Things I took for granted, like backyards, access to a wide variety of foods and free healthcare, was not the world my mum grew up in. Exhausted and sweaty from the trip, I couldn't wait to get inside to feel the coolness of the air conditioning. Mi dispiace, Claudia, non c'è air conditioning, Mimo said. He then told me in broken English to leave the windows open so we could feel the sea breeze. I gave him a weak smile. This was going to be interesting. I headed through the kitchen up the first set of stairs with my luggage and flopped down on the creaky old bed. Looking up, I could see Jesus on the wooden cross looking down at me. It was like he knew something that I didn't. I saw a folded towel on a chair in the corner of the room and grabbed it along with my toiletries to find the bathroom. I couldn't wait to get under the shower and feel that refreshing rush of water, wash away that travel exhaustion. I got undressed and turned on the taps. No water. I tried turning the taps the other way. Still no water. I looked around to see if there was a switch that I needed to flick. I looked up at the faucet, pleading for the water to come out. Not a drop. And I'm going to leave it there.
A cliffhanger, thank you. The next reader is in Adelaide, and I'd like to invite Amy Panetta to join us. Amy, go to a microphone somewhere and we'll be connecting with you soon.
I am here. I'm not sure you see me.
Thanks, Amy. Up you go.
Thank you, Teresa. I'll be sharing 3 poems with you tonight. Our theme, La Terra, this year was evocative. It asked us to reach deep and examine our relationship with this land and what it means as the descendants of immigrants, to build on the foundations of sacrifice and love laid down for us, especially in Australia, where so much pain has been inflicted for the sake of ownership. That's what this first poem draws on as I invite my son into the discussion. Sotto I nostri piedi. Questa terra, figlio mio, è nostra, ma di nessuno. Rubata a popoli antichi, è la terra dove realizziamo i nostri sogni, ma delicatamente, con rispetto. Il suolo dei nostri antenati chiamerà e noi risponderemo. Anche lì è nostro, ma di nessuno. Apparteniamo a tutto e a niente, tranne che a noi stessi. An interesting aspect of thinking about land is space. And I find there is a parallel between the spaces in nature and the spaces that we create for ourselves, in our outer world, certainly, but also in our inner world. This next poem asks you to lie down under your favorite tree, look up through the branches, and let your thoughts fly. Fra le foglie. Fra le foglie e fra I rami, fra I pensieri che mordono I calcagni, vento e stelle, sogni e rimorsi, scivolano e strusciano, intrigo di tempi trascorsi. And it wouldn't be a discussion on La Terra if we didn't explore our sense of belonging and how we navigate that as the children of immigrants. It's the story we've heard told so many times before. In Australia, they call me Italian. In Italy, I'm the Australian girl. It's a cliche for a reason, we've all been there. But who are we independent of where we lay our head? This last piece is my tidy little solution after years of soul searching. In between. I searched for that space, something just for me, that in-between place. It's neither here, nor is it there, but I claim it, and therefore it's my where. My own belonging, it's a place where my grammar and my accent, well, they don't matter. It's my own in-between, where I create future and filter the past, and where sometimes in the vast, I just breathe.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I would like to let everyone know that not only do we put pen to paper, but we are technophiles. And I would like to invite Katrina Lolicato, who is going to share with us a film. And you'll find a link to the film in the book, because someone is incredibly technologically advanced and can do those. So you can watch this film by getting your phone and scanning the QR code in the book. But we're going to show you today. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, I'm Katrina, as Teresa kindly mentioned. Sometimes I like to make short experimental films, often in collaboration with my sister Gracie. Gracie, put your hand up. Yeah. We utilise oral history, environmental sound, ethnography, my family's home archive, and lost and found footage that we find out and about, often on eBay, to cut and paste pieces of the Australian social and cultural experience, and to explore issues of belonging, problems of social justice, the experience of memory making itself, and mortality. So prompted by this year's Ascolta theme, I've come up with this very short experimental film. It's only 2 minutes. Get too restless. And I have called it Terramuri. So the title blends the concept of Terra, which is all at once a reference to the planet Earth, the ground we walk on, the village, the soil, and the goddess herself, who bears witness to the seasons and our cycles of birth and death. While the idea of muri is the Sicilian word for love. I utilised discarded films that I sourced, as I said, on eBay. So one is an original reel of footage of NASA's 1965 Gemini 4 space flight. And another is an expedition undertaken by students at Melbourne University who in 1972 filmed themselves walking across the widest points of the lands we now call Australia. I merged scenes taken from these two films to moments I found in my own family's movies. And my partner Lee, put your hand up, please, to show everyone. He then composed, performed, and recorded the soundtrack. Okay, works team. So, my little spiel. 3 or more generations ago, the upheaval of war resulted in the mass displacement of youth from their homes, their lands, and all the remnants of their ancestors. Modernity's drive for expansion and the capitalist ideal for a better life sent them here, to work and live atop of somebody else's country, to draw from it, to build on it, and to make it like new. Now, 3 or more generations on, we are no longer visitors. We're becoming a part of the land, and the land a part of us. But is it possible to see our lives and theirs as seasons of the same harvest? Can we move beyond seeing people as a sum of differences, with connections of to different land masses and different cultures, and instead as whole sentient beings, encompassing all of the experience, all their lineages, past, present, and future? And maybe with sensitivity and love, commit to the struggle to reconcile our very precarious history. As people who have suffered colonisation and yet come here as also colonisers. Can we sense our ancestors in nature? and landscape, and understand that continuity only counts, as I think Elena mentioned, if our planet exists to witness it. So Terra and Annamaria cannot be separated. In this film, I recall the elements typically found on my southern Italian offender: fire, water, light, wind, and earth. And just like my offender at home, I try and bring my ancestors and nature together. If you look closely, you can feel moments of care, embracing, kissing, imbued within Terra. You might sense my nonna cradling my very, very like moments old baby, while at the same time she really carefully fashions her left hand in the mano conducto. Silently, you know, she's warding off evil, and she's hoping for the best. You might also see a flash of the tambor, which is traditionally played by women. It has the power to drive off grief, trauma, heartache, and malaise. It releases the subconscious and frees our mind. We like to believe that we are in control of our environment, but for as much as we attempt to control our existence, modernity's limited offerings kind of suppresses and contains the spirit. Contemporary society tells us that the answers to our challenges, like somewhere, you know, out there, they're bigger than us, they're beyond us, and beyond what we already know. But Terra holds, heals, nurtures, and sustains us. This film considers the idea that if we look, listen, and feel more closely, maybe the answers are already within.
thank you, Katrina, and to Gracie, and to Chris. What a beautiful film. Lee, I told you we would. Lee. Sara had a brilliant idea when we were thinking about La Terra, and she put it in a jar. So she's going to tell you all about this brilliant idea. Thank you.
We want to end tonight with stop talking and listening to you. We would love for you now to share some of your stories or anything that sparks that came to mind with our readings. And I think the prompt that we are giving you tonight is something that we created. So this soil of jars contain sand and soils from 10, 11 different parts of Australia and Italy, but we won't tell you how we got here. So the prompt was to find a significant place for yes, Ascolta Women needed to find a significant place and just send me a little sample of what that was. And what came was incredible because in this jar, which is of course repurposed, so it's not brand new, there is a place that gives us peace or the beach. There are soil, terra that was scattered on top of loved ones, and we have a cat, a dead, a plant. So the most the different things that you can imagine. There is land of where our parents were born, the land of that parents bought here and made a new house, a new family, a new home. So we wanted to hear from you and what would you put in this jar of soil if you want to share it with us.
So that's your invitation to tell us a little story. And given that we have spoken for a long time, we would like to hear 2 stories from you. What would you put in the jar?
I would put soil from my parents' backyard, where I constantly saw the back of my parents' back.
Thank you. My name's Elvira, and if I could, I would take some soil from my parents' backyard, where I grew up in Ascoltiamo. And when Mum was alive, I would drive her to sit outside and eat an ice cream outside the old house. And she'd say, quello però l'ho piantato io, ho tagliato quel bel capo and all this. But if I could, I would take some soil from that backyard and I would put it in that jar because it's full of lots of amazing memories.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Tony. I would do the same actually. I would get soil from the house that I grew up in Merredin in WA, because reflecting on all the different stories that make me think of as a child, and like looking back now as an adult, how privileged I was to be able to come home from school and just walk up and pick a peach or an apple and just munch on it. And you know how lucky I was to grow up with just fresh fruit and vegetables that mum and dad grew and, you know, willingly shared with all the neighbours, etc. And in doing so, they were able to share some of the culture that we all love so much. So that's what I would contribute.
And one more to put in the soil jar. I think there's there. Yes, there is.
I'm going to follow the theme of the 2 previous speakers, but I think I would put soil from my backyard in Northcote I have a partner that is continuing the tradition of his parents. So he has the most wonderful edible garden that he produces, and it's his parents' legacy, it's third generation legacy. Our children come to that garden, and it reminded me of, I think, filmmaker, when you said, we are part of this land now, and the third generation is part of this land, although there's connection to other places, but it's here now, and that's why I would pick up the soil from Northcote.
Thank you so much for the lovely way to end our evening. As has been mentioned numerous times, this is a collective of sorelli. This is a collective of family, of people who belong. Everyone here tonight, I know, has shared their hearts, shared their stories, and we all bring this to La Terra Vecchia, La Terra Nuova, and we bring it, and here we are. I would very much like to thank Carmelina and Paolo Baracchi for working up CO.AS.IT to us. CO.AS.IT has extended its doors and we have rushed in, and we are so thankful that we are able to be welcomed. We are here. Whatever we want to do is all right with them. So we can't thank you enough, Paolo. Thank you, Carmelina. Continuing on the wonderful work, thank you, Elise, for your beautiful presentation, and the wonderful work of International Women's Day. Rosanna is here. Rosanna is launching her book on the 19th of, there she is, Rosanna Morales is launching her book on the last Sicilian, looking at the Sicilian dialect and through poetry on the 19th of March here. So of course, we'd like to thank the editorial team, in particular Cristina Neri. Is Cristina here?
No, she's not.
No, she's not here. But Cristina Neri, who helped lift the burden from all of us and helped with this book in putting it all together, and Rosanna for all her support as well. Good afternoon. When I said, Elise, please come and launch our book, and she said, yes, of course, Teresa, I will do that. And of course, Elise will be here early tomorrow morning, taking us through with Annamaria Paolino, taking us through another superb creative writing workshop. So thank you, Elise, forever. Thank you. Thank you to all the Ascoltiases who've travelled from so far and those who have come from near. Thank you so much. This is us. We make this. We are happy. We are thrilled. We are awesome. This is what we do, and we do it with love and open hearts. Thank you to all of you for being here today. Our books are here, and there's lots of women here to talk to. Grazie mille.
I'm sorry I can't be actually,